Therefore I was left alone when I saw this great vision, and no strength remained in me, for my vigor was turned to frailty in me. Another way to interpret it, for my splendor was turned into ruin. For my splendor was turned into ruin. That was verse 8. Then it says, my vigor was turned into frailty in me, or my splendor was turned into ruin. And I retained no strength. And I retained no strength. Yet I heard the sound of his words. And while I heard the sound of his words, I was in deep sleep on my face, with my face to the ground. So he saw the vision, but the vision caused him, well, all of the things that we see here, but in part is not because he was afraid. Mainly the problem here is that when flesh encounters the spirit, the flesh cannot take it. The flesh is like an animal. I repeat, the flesh is poverty, is lowliness. So when the royalty, the highness of the Almighty reveals itself to the flesh cannot take it. It falls, shakes, breaks, cries, etc. So we need to understand that, so that if we go through certain things like that, we don't go with the feelings of the flesh. Instead, we maintain focus in the revelation. Just like Daniel, he had no strength. He was on the floor. He was face down, but he was still listening. He was still focused. He was not afraid, even though he had no strength at all, which can also be interpreted as the fact that the two witnesses come and they will be killed and left on the ground for 3 years and a half, no strength, no nothing. Their splendor, because the last comes as the king with splendor, but they will kill him. So his splendor will turn to ruin, face down for 3.5 days. Hope that's clear. So it says, yet I heard the sound of his words, and while I heard the sound of his words, I was in deep sleep on my face, with my face to the ground. Verse 10. Suddenly a hand touched me. Suddenly a hand touched me. Remember that Yahushua is the arm. The last is the hand. First and last are arm and hand. Suddenly a hand touched me, which made me tremble. Which made me tremble on my knees and on the palms of my hands. So at least he got strength to get on his knees and on the palms of his hands. Suddenly a hand touched me. So the last, who is like the hand, will touch through the teaching the 144 to give them strength for the end times, for the tests and all of that. A hand touched me, which made me tremble on my knees and on the palms of my hands. And he said to me, O Daniel, man greatly beloved. O Daniel, man greatly beloved. In Hebrew, Vayomer Eli, and he said to me, Daniel ish Hamudot. Then it says, understand the words that I speak to you. So, O Daniel, man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak to you, and stand upright, for I have now been sent to you. Stand upright. So he gives him strength. The hand gave him strength to get on his knees and palms, but then the voice gave him the extra strength to get up and set up and stand upright, which represents that the world, even those who believe in Yahweh, have lost their strength because of 2,000 years of waiting. For instance, I'm just putting in simple words, even though there are many things more that could be said. So they're on the floor, but the hand, like the last, will appear to give them strength to get on their knees and pray to the real mighty one through the real names. And then that will lead them to hear the voice that will strengthen them in order to stand upright, meaning be straight in the way to Yahweh, upright. Va'amod stand, stand. Then it says, for I have now been sent to you. While he was speaking this word to me, I stood trembling. So he was able to stand. He got the strength, but there was still flesh in him. So that's why he kept trembling. We need to understand Daniel knew about the spiritual. Daniel had no problem with speaking with angels. Daniel had no issue with believing in this other reality. So why was he trembling? I repeat, because of the flesh. The flesh cannot take the manifestation of the spirit. The flesh was not made for it. Simply. That's why we cannot interpret scriptures with the flesh. Because out of fear, we'll interpret everything the wrong way and bring punishment, which is what fear does when it is not going towards Yahweh, which would become the beginning of wisdom. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. Yet if you don't fear Yahweh, you will end up fearing everything and therefore being punished because of whatever sin you have committed, instead of fearing Yahweh and asking forgiveness and receiving it, and therefore entering for the promise. While he was speaking this word to me, I stood trembling. Stood up, still trembling. And I say this because if Yahweh lets any of us have any revelation like this, of this sort, so that if our flesh cannot take it, we don't focus on that we remain focused on the revelation. Because if you start focusing on the flesh and the trembling, the fear, whatever, you will lose the revelation. You will lose that moment, like the other men that were with Daniel at that moment and fled.